You're listening to Dave the IT Guy, coming to you from an undisclosed location. Do not be afraid. Dave is here to help with all of your security and hacking questions and news. We own them now, and we are in control. Sit back, turn it up, and let's get started in 3, 2, 1.
That's right. You are listening to Dave the IT Guy. And here we go once again. Tonight we're going to give it a try one more time with Jason Haddix. Now, if you were around last night, you found out, or you heard very quickly, that we got about 8 seconds into his interview, and boom, he was gone. Now, oddly enough, I had jokingly started that interview off with, "You're not hacking us, right? And we are coming from undisclosed locations," and all this, silly stuff. And then boom, he was gone. So very apropos that in the new age of internet radio, here I am on regular terrestrial AM FM radio, and we're having technical issues, and then we're having to go old school. So today I was able to interview Jason via phone, and we recorded that interview, and we're going to play that for you here in just a couple minutes. Now, that interview is almost 30 minutes long, so it's a great interview, great sets of questions and answers, no commercials the entire time. So this is going to be a great interview. I'm really looking forward to hearing it. I wanted to take a minute for two things. One is that intro that you just heard from for my podcast here for Dave the IT Guy. So, young lady who goes by the business name of MV Michael Victor Productions actually stands for Misty Vox Productions. You can find her over on the website called Fiverr. It's FIVERR, 2 R's.com. She does some great work, as you just heard. And at the end of my podcast, you're going to hear her outro that she made for me as well. So I wanted to give a quick shout out because tonight and this episode is the first time we're using that those audio clips. So Misty, I know you're listening, and thank you. You are awesome. I also want to take another quick second to say thank you to Dave the IT Guy's newest sponsor, which is 1-800-GOT-JUNK. Now, you wonder, hey, why do IT people need a Got Junk podcast sponsor people? I mean, really? Why? Well, because IT, how many times are we getting rid of crap, right? We're throwing old keyboards and monitors away and all kinds of stuff. We always have crap to get rid of. These guys would come in and get your stuff, and they even go out and recycle it and donate the reusable stuff. So they are very socially conscious business about the stuff that they're taking from you. So again, I want to say thank you to them, and you certainly want to reach out and talk to the 1-800-GOT-JUNK folks. Here's a quick intro for them as well.
Our trucks are on your street right now
and headed your way.
Goodbye, junk.
Hello, relief.
Call 1-800-GOT-JUNK
or visit 1-800-GOT-JUNK.com.
All right, well, say thanks again to the 1-800-GOT-JUNK people. I want to say thanks again to Misty Vox Productions for these great intros and outros. But now, let's get to what we're really here for. So so this interview with Jason, like I said, was recorded today, but it is not live right now. So if you try to join us in chat and ask Jason questions, can't ask them to him because it's over already. But sit back and listen for the next 27 minutes. Here we go. Here's Jason. All right, so it's Dave, and we're back again. We're going to try this conversation with Jason Haddix from BugCrowd one more time. We were trying to interview him yesterday, and I jokingly said that we were going to be in an undisclosed location so that he couldn't hack us. And I'll be damned if he still didn't hack us anyway. So we're going to see if we can avoid that one more time, because now we're going old school. So unless he's still got his old school phone freaking days underneath his belt, he's not going to hack this phone call. At least I hope not. So let's give it a shot. Let's bring him on. So Jason, thanks for joining us again. And are you hacking us again this time?
You know, I do have some of those old school phone shops, but I'm not today. No, in fact, feedback yesterday. I think it was just plain old-fashioned technical difficulties, but I'm glad that you're giving me all the credit.
Well, I certainly wanted to act like it was me, but then I thought, well, how stupid would that be? I hacked myself. So, yeah, that doesn't work. All right. So without me giving a bunch of intro, I know that, you're in charge over there at BugCrowd of some fun stuff. You were their top bug hunter from, 2014, 2015. So instead of me trying to tell everybody who you are, you probably know yourself a little bit better. So tell us a little bit about what you do, who you're doing it for, and how you got there.
Sure, absolutely. My name is Jason Haddix, and I'm the head of trust and security at BugCrowd. BugCrowd is a security company. What we do is we host responsible disclosure and bug bounty programs for clients like Tesla and other automotive manufacturers, technology companies, all kinds of big companies who want to ensure that their websites and their products are secure. We create this marketplace where we invite researchers who are hackers all over the world to sign up with us and compete against one another in what we call bug bounties. And so I started off as a researcher in the early days at BugCrowd. Like you said, I did a lot of security work in my professional times. I've worked for HP as the director of what's called penetration testing there. I'm sure your viewers who are tech savvy know what penetration testing is. It's very similar to hacking, but you do it in an ethical way, and you provide a report to the client, and you responsibly disclose your vulnerabilities, and you get paid for it as a consultant. So I started working with BugCrowd as a researcher, got to be number one for about a year and a half, and then they invited me to come on board to help train the back-end folks who were doing the triage and validation. So what not only do you need as hackers to make these type of bug bounties successful, but you also need an extension of your security team to help intake those findings when people do find bad stuff. And so I signed on to help them do that, and I was very successful there. Now I lead a couple of different initiatives here at BugCrowd. But I started off on the ground doing hacking. Started off as an IT guy, just like probably a lot of your listeners. Did some systems administration, did some courses on ethical hacking as well, and kind of worked my way up from the ground, self-taught, just like a lot of people out there.
So yesterday off air, we started to talk a little bit, and I broached the subject of Black Hat and DEF CON, and you mentioned that this year you're actually out there teaching quite a bit. You want to talk about your experience with the Black Hat and the DEF CON crowds?
Sure, absolutely. So my first DEF CON was DEF CON 14, I believe, and so I've been going for quite a few years, and then Black Hat as well. I've been going ever since I've been going to DEF CON. So I go and, for the first couple of years, I just experienced it. The crowd there is amazing. A whole bunch of hackers. It's kind of like the hackers mecca. Every summer, they all pack up and go to Las Vegas to these conferences. And so around my third or fourth year, I felt like I was, pretty knowledgeable in one area, and I submitted a talk and got accepted. And I've been speaking at Black Hat DEF CON for 3 or 4 years now in some different capacities. So this year I went and I talked about web application security, and basically we took the ideas behind some of the methodologies that our crowd, we call them, all of the hackers on our system that responsibly disclose their vulnerabilities to our customers, and we had made some tools to help them do their job better and more efficiently, and so we released those at Black Hat, and then we did some other stuff too. We did some training. I've given mobile hacking training before there, so a lot of different things. Basically, whatever research sparks my interest before summertime for the hacker cons.
Before we get over into what a bug crowd is, I want to follow up with in regards to the Black Hat discussions that you've hosted. I get to meet Grizz a couple years ago. I talked to him again this year out there, and he's on their board of review that reviews these submissions. And this was year 20, and in many of the recent years, they've gotten several thousand proposals to present out there. So,
yeah.
If you can you describe what it's like to have to try to put that proposal together? And if you find out, or when you find out that you've been accepted to speak, it's almost like an Academy Award of the hackers, right? You're like, hey, I get to speak at Black Hat. What's that process like for you?
It's a huge honor, and I'm very humbled by being able to speak every year that I get selected. And so the process is what's called the call for papers. Just like any industry conference, usually DEF CON or Black Hat will send out 6 months in advance their call for papers, which means that you can submit a topic or a talk on any topic really you like, but they prefer offensive security and some defensive security topics as well. And so you basically put together an abstract, a high-level abstract talking about your research, and then a detailed, very, very detailed segment of research for what your talk is going to be about. And this can be anywhere from, 5 pages of text, technically, quoted up, and then it can be all the way to, 25 pages, depending on what your topic is. And so you send that in to them, you wait a little while, they get thousands of submissions to DEF CON and Black Hat nowadays. And the review board is comprised, I think, of about 10 or 15 people. And really what they do is they blindly look at the topics. Some of them blindly do, some of them do not blindly look at the topics, but they'll rate them. They'll come back, and usually you'll have to do what's called the defense of your initial topic. So they'll want to ask questions about why this is relevant to the audience, why it's relevant to security. They'll poke all kinds of holes in your thesis about what you're talking about. And so this year I actually had to submit a pretty in-depth defense. I had about 15 or so technical and non-technical questions about my talk, why it was useful, and things like that. And so you have to submit kind of a second paper, second round, and then sometimes there's a third or fourth defense basically, and then eventually about 2.5 months before the conference, if they've selected you or not. The earlier you submit, the better your chances are. The better your topic is, the better your chances are. And so it's pretty rigorous. It's a great honor. There's been less and less tracks at DEF CON and Black Hat this year. And when they have a lot more room, they're growing in numbers, but they're making less tracks of talks to go to. And when they only have so many tracks, that means that they only have so many speakers. And so it's a great honor to be selected. The rooms were huge. I went and I talked about web application security, and it was a great crowd. So I talked about a tool that we made called Hunt, and Hunt is a tool that helps you go out and find vulnerabilities in common places, but it's a manual testing tool instead of an automated tool like much of the industry tries to go out and create, and it basically helps our researchers on the BugCrowd platform do their jobs better.
So let's talk a little bit about those BugCrowd researchers, and talk a little bit first about who they are. Where do they come from? Clearly, they're coming from the hacker or the pen testing field. They might be already gainfully employed or just learning on their own, like you commented. But before we get too in depth on what they're doing, talk a little bit about how you find them or how they find you, and what that initial process looks like to get them on the team.
Sure. So, and I can tell you my experience too is I was working at HP at the time. I was the director of penetration testing there, so doing a lot of legit security work for a lot of very big clients as a consultant for HP. And I got this crazy email solicitation from Casey, who is our founder. And it basically said, we're starting this thing called BugCrowd. Clients have signed up in order to participate in their security test. You register here just like you register for an email address or something at Gmail. We get some very cursory information on your skill set, and then we apply you to what's called a bug bounty. And bug bounty is very much like a penetration test. You get a target, and you go start hacking it, and you start submitting those vulnerabilities. Now, the first person to find a vulnerability that is valid, that actually pans out to be a real thing, gets rewarded usually gets rewarded a cash monetary reward. And so it's incentivized, it's gamified. I got to tell you, once I did it, I was hooked. It's very addicting to have this side channel of work to be able to do it. And I was a full-time security guy doing this in my free time. I knew plenty of researchers who were full-time pen testers, and I still do, who are full-time pen testers or security researchers at large security firms who do BugCrowd in their free time. But then it also opened up to this avenue of people trying to do that as their full-time job. Being a security consultant, there's not a defined path really to become a hacker for hire, a good guy hacker, as my kids would call it. And so we've really really started to branch out to that as well. So people trying to make a name for themselves with their BugCrowd submissions and profile, saying that, hey, look, I've hacked companies that BugCrowd hosts bounties for. I have this skill set, and I'm ready to move into the professional world of doing this full time. So we have a lot of younger set of researchers in India and the Philippines and Europe who are trying to come up and do this as their career. And so that really warms my heart because, I didn't have this when I was super starting, and if I would have, it would have been a great boon to kind of get me started into doing this as a profession. And so we cater to those people, and we do a lot of training for them, and we try to get them on the platform. We solicit to them at all the information security conferences, really. So not just DEF CON and Black Hat, but all the regional ones that are in every state. We travel and send representatives out to talk about using BugCrowd to become a researcher on our platform.
So we've talked about how you're getting those people, and a lot of times, like you mentioned, you're attracting those who might want to be a black hat, but they prefer to not get arrested and go to prison somewhere. So they're trying to use those black hat type skills, but they want to be more on the I'm getting paid in the more righteous way kind of method. So we start looking at white hats or pen testing sort of mentality. So let's talk a little bit about how these clients are reaching out to you, or how you might be reaching out to them to offer, taking a crowdsourced hacking methodology and how you show them that there's a value add to that type of service.
Sure. And so this is just the model in general. It is a drastic enabler. It is I don't know what some people call and use fancy buzzwords, but force multiplier, radical advantage, wherever you want to call it. But when you think about security testing for a client, right, they have websites, they have applications on your phone, they have devices that they sell, and all of them need security testing. It's mandated in a lot of industries that you need to do security testing every year. So that's where penetration testing came from, right? And so our model is basically instead of the normal consultancy that you would hire a pen tester for 1 week, and it's one guy, and it's for this tiny snapshot in time, and it's one consultant, and you have no idea really what his skill set is. You just hope that the consultancy that you partnered with is a good one, and you pay an exorbitant amount of money, somewhere in the range of $15,000 to $50,000 for one application to get tested, and that is just kind of now becoming a little bit of the old way to do it. So with BugCrowd, you get a defined testing scope of anywhere from 1 week to a month to a year. You get hundreds of researchers participating with their security skill sets, and it is just a giant force multiplier because every hacker is different and good at different things. I may be good at hacking infrastructure, whereas another hacker might be good at hacking websites or be very specifically good at phishing or some other subset of technology that you want to use against your applications or your products. And so it's just it's about usually, I don't like to quote hard stats, but if you ballpark it, it's about a 5 to 10x increase in the amount and severity of findings over a traditional model of security testing. So it's really effective for our customers. You also don't pay for time. You only pay for results. So you only pay when someone finds a bug. You're not paying them for their hourly consulting rate anymore. So amortized over a year, it costs a lot less than doing a couple pen tests. So it's really a great new model. It allows security testers to work from home, work full time on a bunch of different cool projects with a lot of cool companies. So that's kind of how we angle it in the industry. It's the new way of doing things, and we really want customers to come on board and use the platform and use our crowd to try to leverage security in their applications.
So as you guys are reaching out to these companies, or they reach out to you, and you're talking to them about your capabilities as a company, and then your researchers and what they can do, at any given time, you might have a project that's hitting a web app, or hitting a mobile app, or hitting a firewall or other infrastructure. And so conceivably, a registered researcher could be working on different projects at the same time and have multiple ways of making money for themselves, like you said, if they're first and if they're good. But you're also not limited to just doing one thing at a time as a company, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. It provides for a tester, right? Sometimes you can get pigeonholed, or a hacker, you can get pigeonholed into kind of doing one type of testing. But with BugCrowd, if you're doing this as a full-time job, you're doing bounty hunting, you can get exposure to a wide array of targets, a wide array of customers. So it's really beneficial for both sides of what we call our marketplace. But yeah, I mean, when I was testing, I got to test mobile apps, web apps, devices, infrastructure. I was hacking all of those things, and it really helped me learn a lot of techniques and methodologies that I wasn't comfortable with before, but now I have a good level of comfortability now. So.
Do you find that the researchers that are working for BugCrowd, clearly they're all, like you said, it's a game, and sometimes it's a race. Like, hey, who's first to find it wins the big money. So, but do you find that group of people are so tight-knit anyway that they are communicating behind the scenes and they're sharing capabilities or ideas, or they're bouncing ideas off each other, or maybe at a Black Hat or a DEF CON or some other regional event, they're kind of meeting up or hooking up on the sidelines, trying to just expand their own circle of people. Do you find that to be common or not so much?
Absolutely. In fact, it's much more than when I was a pen tester. So when you sign on and you start off as a pen tester, your methodology is taught to you by the consultancy that you work for. With bug bounty hunters, they have Slack channels that they're all in, asking each other questions. They don't release any data about the targets that they're hacking, but they're all asking each other, like, oh, well, if you were going at this type of target, and you got this type of response, and you think it's vulnerable to something, what would you do? And they're all really helping of each other to learn these, and then a lot of them share their techniques. In fact, we hosted a virtual conference right before DEF CON for people who couldn't make it out to Las Vegas. It was called Level Up, and it was amazing. I have never been to such an awesome event where I learned so much in so little time, and I got to do it from my own computer chair at home with the beer in my hand. It was we had all the researchers submit different topics that they thought that they would like to train on. I did a talk as well, and a lot of the researchers are pushing a lot of vulnerabilities that are new vulnerabilities that a lot of people hadn't really seen, and they're coming out first not anymore from security research but from bounties. Actually, they're writing about these disclosures and these techniques that they use to hack into these websites or products, and the community around it that has grown is amazing. They share information, and even though it's gamified and it's a competition, it's way more information sharing than we've ever had historically in security testing in that kind of arena.
Wow. So we've been talking with Jason Haddix from BugCrowd. Lots of great information, Jason. We've got just a few minutes left. Tell me a little bit about what's going on in the pen testing field now that maybe has been a game changer, or maybe just completely different than maybe even in the last 18 months. Has the results, or has the targets, or have the people that are causing these bad things to happen, has there been a drastic shift in what we're seeing in the security field these days?
It'll continue to be web applications for quite a long time until we get them under control. So, I mean, Equifax was a thing that happened today. The notice just went out that they got breached, and it was a web application vulnerability. Most vulnerabilities, if they release the method of compromise, it's either an internal host gets affected with malware and a hacker gets in through that, or most likely it's a web application that gets hacked into via web application flaw. And so there was a big one that came out today, an Apache Struts vulnerability that leads to remote code execution. That'll be kind of used for the next couple months. What I've seen really is the idea of applications, custom applications being written will always have pretty standard type bugs, and those will continue to present themselves. But what I've seen a lot lately is infrastructure and code hosting platforms become the new targets. So and also frameworks. So people are using all of these newfangled frameworks and ways to distribute their code and infrastructure as code, and they're in the cloud. And so all these things are opening up new channels for people to hack the infrastructure instead of the application. And so We see a lot of things to do with one of the new ones that actually I was kind of talking about is that this vulnerability came out of Bounty instead of really security researcher. It's called subdomain takeover. And so the idea is you as a website owner stand up a website and then you register a whole bunch of subdomains and then you decide to do something with one of those subdomains, but you use a third-party service to do that. So let's say you host a forum or you do something else, and so you point one of your subdomains at this third-party service. But then when you don't use that third-party service anymore, your subdomain is still hanging out there, and if you forget to deprovision it, then someone can register the third-party service again, control it themselves, and now they control a piece of your infrastructure. Now that bug, before I got into Bug Bounty, I had never heard of it, and then all of a sudden, I see it everywhere, and people are having pieces of their infrastructure and their DNS entries controlled by attackers, and I saw it, and it came out of Bug Bounty. It came out of a researcher named, I'm pretty sure it was Franz Rosen, was one of the Bug Bounty hunters who found that one, or at least publicized it widely, that it was a method to use in bounty hunting, and it's quite effective. And so there's many of those instances in kind of the pen testing realm that have come strictly out of bounty. So I'm excited to see what the next couple of years bring as far as research in the offensive security field and the hacking field, all legitimate, of course, but keep on pushing it from the bounty angle as well.
And so this will probably be my last question, unfortunately, hopefully good question anyway. When we start looking at things like WikiLeaks and other disclosures, maybe hackers finding the nude photos of the celebs, when we start seeing these big dumps of just stuff from the hacker world or from the security world, there's really no value there, right? I mean, we're finding that the value is either for political trashing of somebody, whoever might have some value there. There might be some value to if somebody can sell you a nude photo of some celebrity, whatever. But for security researchers as a whole, the community isn't really jumping up and down like, woohoo, you found this, right? I mean, we're more like, okay, that's kind of boring, and move on to something better. What's your take on all the public disclosures that we're seeing almost weekly?
Well, it's to a consumer and to someone who has kids, and I care about all that kind of stuff, right? Like my kids, sometimes get pictures of them get sent over Snapchat. So if something were to happen to Snapchat or something like that, or any of the social media, like I absolutely care about things like breaches that happen to those companies, and they affect me. But I think most of those bugs actually are standard-ish that we've seen in the last 10 to 15 years. No one's pushing really the envelope with types of bugs. New vulnerability classes don't come out very often, and so really we don't focus too much on those. It sucks when they happen, but usually when the root cause analysis is done, it's something that we've faced before as a security industry. And so we identify it, we find ways to broadly evangelize its fix, and then we try to move on and reduce the damage. Right when it affects people financially as well. My dad actually got hit by some credit card fraud and in the recent weeks, or not weeks, sorry, recent months. And yeah, it's painful to deal with, and you have to stay vigilant. But as the security research community, we don't take a lot away from those because they're usually known attacks. We're trying to focus on remediating those things as a community. So with our services, we'll run a bounty. We'll identify everything, help the customer plan remediation once our researchers find everything, and so that's the way that we're going to help push the needle forward. But investigating those things is not super crazy. Now, when there's a big thing like malware, like WannaCry or something like that that came out recently, reverse engineering those and seeing those as well is useful to see how broad attacks are happening and how they happened. But again, WannaCry was a whole bunch of known vulnerabilities that had been out for at least 3 or 4 months already, and then a whole bunch of known pen test techniques that were built into the malware that pen testers use every day. So to find out that those are now getting built into malware, we have a good base to prevent. Patch your systems, keep your antivirus up to date, things like that, and you won't get affected by those bugs. So, those ones actually came out of the NSA NSA exploit leak that happened. So yeah.
Right on. So we've been talking with Jason Haddix out of BugCrowd. Jason, we're just about out of time. Is there anything that you want to tell the people about? Any upcoming webinars, any events, how to get in touch with you or BugCrowd or anything? Just feel free to blurt it out.
Absolutely. So we're at BugCrowd on Twitter. That's where we do a lot of our blasting out of content and events we're going to be at, where we send representatives all over out of the United States to security conferences. So if you're an IT person and you're looking for a change and you've heard of security testing as a career, this is such an excellent way to get into it, to start learning and doing bug bounties. Find one of us, find one of our tables at one of these conferences, DM us on Twitter at BugCrowd, or you can DM me at Twitter at jhaddix, JHADDIX, and I can answer any questions you have. But really, we want to build our researcher stable. We want IT people and developers who are smart, who know applications and infrastructure, but who want to get into security. We want you to try this out with us and kind of push the needle forward in the security realm. So contact us, and we'll get working with you.
Outstanding. Jason, I can't say thanks enough for trying this with me 2 days in a row, and we'll be backtracking yesterday to make sure that wasn't you. No, all kidding aside. Again, thanks for the extra time and reaching back out again today. All right, so there we go. Jason Haddix at BugCrowd after try number 2 to get that interview on the books. So hopefully you found it as interesting as I did. If you had never heard of BugCrowd as a company or crowdsourcing your pen testing, or just a way to join a community of people and learn and maybe even make a few bucks on the side. There you go. Reach out to BugCrowd or to Jason. And all right, so that's about it. We're going to end this thing today. I want to say thank you again to Misty Vox for these great intros and the outro that you're going to hear as we close this down. And once again, thanks to 1-800-GOT-TRUCKS for their sponsorship of Dave the IT Guy.
Our trucks are on your street right now.
And headed your way.
Goodbye, junk.
Hello, Relief.
Call 1-800-GOT-JUNK.
Or visit 1-800-GOT-JUNK.com.
All right, that'll do it for this particular episode of Dave the IT Guy. Check us out next Wednesday night, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, live from just about anywhere. We are Dave, the IT Guy. We own your systems. No, we don't, but that's fun to say.
Okay, so that's it. You've heard what Dave the IT Guy has to say. Hopefully you were inspired to take some action or to continue to learn more on your own. At the very least, we hope you'll tell others about Dave and his podcast and ask them to come check it out. As always, you can download episodes on the iHeartRadio, Spreaker, and Stitcher apps or in iTunes by searching Dave the IT Guy. You can also just visit dtig.net and listen in the on-demand players on the website. Plus, you can read some of his blogs that don't make it to air.